Deep within Siberia's icy core, buried beneath strata of old coal tens of meters beneath the surface, an odd revelation sent shockwaves through a whole village. But what was left of Soviet intelligence officers and scientists? The sarcophagus was genuinely stunned. Over 800 million years old, according to estimates, surpassing the age of the. What exactly was inside Dinosaurs? This impossibly large tomb. And could this? We have to rework everything because of the discovery. We believed we understood the history of humanity. Therefore, buckle up as we dive into the mystery of the day. But first, you'll have amazing luck if you're interested in, and before watching this video, subscribe. Concludes on September 5th, an autumn morning. 1969, in a little community known as nestled deep within the Rajashik extent of Siberia in the former Soviet Union. One thing happened that would make anyone who hears about it uneasy for the locals. It was just another typical workday. Yet historically it signaled the appearance of something, anything that has never been seen by modern humanity. Had the audacity to picture an ancient coal mine below the surface by almost 70 meters. A team of miners worked in the shadows, surrounded by the dark and rock dust. The constant clinks of their labor of pickaxes hitting rock reverberated in repeat, followed by a new sound. Breaking through that tedium, one of the miners ceased blotting his perspiration. He leaned down and started to brush his brow, clearing the loose earth from the area where he had recently struck. Shortly after, a seamless surface started to appear instead of natural rock. Yet it's something more. It seemed to be a piece of handcrafted material, purposefully molded by an unidentified hand. With his co-workers' assistance, they continued penetrating the odd wall until a void opened up to expose the chamber. Showed no signs of previous human activity presence. The air was cold and dense, was filled with a fragrance that defied justification as their flashlights' flash beams over the men's stone walls froze silently at the bizarre scene. Now a sarcophagus was exposed in front of them of marble that is almost 3 meters long and almost intricate, 1 m high, lies before them, cutting so accurate that nobody could think it was a human invention. Industrial-era hands on the head of the mine promptly informed the local authority. But for the miners, the realm of imagination had already transcended forbearance. Some archaic whispers. A long-buried royal artifact or a treasure. Others were worried that they might be taken by the government without even an explanation. That is torn between enthusiasm with anxiety. An impulsive choice was decided that the sarcophagus would be opened themselves without awaiting directives. When the marble lid of the at last, the sarcophagus was opened. The whole room seems to go quiet in a moment it was impossible to describe. The miners stood motionless, unable to move because of the scene within the tomb in front of them. A young woman was lying still in a state of flawless preservation, as though she'd barely fell asleep in a brief. Her beauty did not match her sleep, contemporary norms, but instead exuded an old charm that is pure and almost legendary. Her complexion was unnaturally whiter than even individuals suffering from albinism and perfectly smooth and devoid of any. Give her long, flowing hair, a dark stain of brown fell softly over her, down her back and shoulders. It was a type of beauty that was not in contrast to any recognized ideal of modern-day humanity. But what actually? It wasn't simply her that left everyone gasping. Appearance, it was in perfect shape. She was immersed in a liquid, clear pink fluid that surrounded. She also resembles a protective veil, lying in the sarcophagus next to. Her head was a tiny, enigmatic object. A sleek, little black metal box having no distinct signs of any known technology in 1969. There was no. One could imagine the purpose of this gadget could be useful. But many years after, with the advent of cell phones, those who had already seen this discovery started to see the item had a striking similarity in dimensions and form too. An advanced communication tool. That the woman's gown was composed of an incredibly fragile white silk that almost clear. But surprisingly, it hadn't deteriorated over time. Several researchers subsequently claimed that they were unable to recognize any method or substance that can reproducing such cloth in the face of the woman's deceptive appearance and the odd aspect of her surroundings. The locals started referring to her as a dignified and reverent name. The name of Princess Tyson is derived from where the sarcophagus is located in the Tile district had been discovered. Nobody was aware of her identity, was her origin, or the time period to which she belonged. Everyone agreed. Yet she belonged. She was not a typical person from. In a matter of days, human history, the whole region around the mine was placed in a red, severe lockdown. Military aircraft transporting senior Soviet representatives arrived at the location. Like a full-fledged military action were in progress. The residents were told to vacate. The cautions were provided at the location right away regarding an unknown biological threat. The miners who witnessed the corpse within the sarcophagus was called in for intimate conversations, and nobody ever discovered what they were informed or what they possessed disclosed in the interim attempts to extract. The Earth's tomb started at a faster speed. But then there was a major challenge for the sarcophagus was more substantial than anything they had ever, dealing with a lack of equipment, including the helicopter's ability to lowering the enormous piece of marble, particularly given the amount of pink. The body is still surrounded by liquid. The only practical remedy was to eliminate the liquid completely, then keep it in containment barrels designed specifically for different transportation, and that's when the exact time that the pink liquid was drop by drop, steadily siphoning out that. The change started with the perfect. The woman's white skin began to transform that pallid color in a few minutes. The brightness soon faded to a drab gray, darkened much more till her body showed up, lifeless and blue. The vivid feeling of presence that had previously astounded everyone was. The sarcophagus was then gone, taken to Novosk, the city, for additional examination in addition to the barrels containing the peculiar pink. A group of the Soviet Union's leading scientists were gathered to examine the woman and the peculiar pink fluid in the middle of. One of them was an institute professor of paleontology, who would thereafter acknowledge that throughout his years of study, he had never came across anything even close to. The scientists were surprised by this. The majority was not the body's condition, but the outcomes of the dating process. Analysis of radiocarbon produced no useful examples of data extracted from the fabric of the pink liquid on her clothes, and even from all of the marble that encircles the body fell outside the quantifiable bounds of traditional testing. Of the values that are returned were so incredibly elevated that they fell entirely outside of the operational variety of their tools. The researchers were compelled to use more sophisticated methods, such as the geological layer analysis from the location where the sarcophagus was discovered to have molecular, the liquid and isotopic readings assessment with less common radioactive components. Following weeks of testing and cross-referencing information to get the desired outcome astonished the scientific community. The coal layer's geological age, which the sarcophagus had been removed from, discovered, was estimated to be about 800 million years. That number didn't simply exceed the entirety of human history, having preceded whether any known sophisticated life exists. Even the earliest dinosaurs on Earth first appeared some 230 million years ago. If this conclusion was correct, so the sarcophagus's woman was unable to potentially be a part of any historical time frame that we have ever comprehended. Existential questions at once. The scientific community erupted. Was this evidence of a sophisticated, the existence of an ancient civilization perhaps existed well before the Cambrian era, or was she might be an extraterrestrial? The marble sarcophagus finding and the enigmatic woman's body had left the Ryavchik community in disbelief. Then what transpired over the next few months and years later, it would be terrified, can perplex the young person who initially. The sarcophagus was discovered dead in what was recognized as a strange traffic mishap, renowned for being cautious and accountable. A man who has never consumed alcohol before. However, the inquiry report asserted his motorcycle was being driven under the impact when he fell into his family's pickup on a village road. Rejected this explanation completely, claimed that after coming back from the mine woke up abruptly in the midst of the night, overcome with terror he couldn't express, but that was perhaps the start of what would eventually an extensive series of tragedies. A few weeks later, a second small unexpectedly disappeared in the woods, and his body was discovered curled up on the riverbed. Appears to be suffering from severe hypothermia. Even though it's far from freezing outside, on that day, rumors started to spread. Among them, the sarcophagus's curse on the villages they made a call it, and every year that went by seemed to lend support for that notion as more individuals related to the 1969 incident was confronted by Prematulians in 1973, only 4 years after the revelation that the Soviet military unpredictably fell on Tissel. They closed off the entire district forest encircling the former coal mine with 3 steel security rings, placed checkpoints along each path, and locals were absolutely prohibited from entering just the recently designated restricted area years later through fragmentary and uncommon Testimony revealed bits of the truth start to appear. Geologists took part in the preliminary examination of. Later, the alleged princess would recollect that throughout that summer Soviet special forces in the same year found 2 additional sarcophagi close to a lake a short distance away from the first mine. White marble was used to chisel both sites. The design is the same as the first and each included a body that had been preserved in the same peculiar pink fluid as completely undamaged and as unearthly as all those engaged in the excavation. Later research on these sarcophagi was compelled to execute non-disclosure contracts. A few were quickly moved to faraway posts, while others just. The research documents vanished, data from scientific studies and even physical. Pink preservation fluid samples disappeared from the National Archives as though they had never been there. A few of the scientists who previously accessed to the case, but nobody was brave enough to publicly express the opinion that the sarcophagus's fluids may have been a type of highly developed biological preservation fluid was something else entirely, beyond what is currently. Technology did more than just preserve cells, unbroken for millions of years, but it additionally maintained the flexibility of look of the hair's shine, the skin, and even the soft tissue structure, which resulted in several to tend to the idea that the Princess of Tassel was from a culture that was formerly present on Earth only to dissipate inexplicably before being noted history ever. Proponents of this theory have started to declare it to be a pre-human civilization that could have flourished for hundreds of millions of years in the past, even before They contend that the dinosaurs' age. There might have been a culture in the past with technical and scientific capacities that are significantly more than what we now have. A more radical theory was proposed today. The princess didn't originate from. Her skin was as white as a pearl, thought to be a flexible reaction to a world with less light, possibly a planet that is farthest away from its sun. The preservation fluid and the sarcophagus. Consequently, it might not be old terrestrial, not even artifacts, but rather the results of alien technology. This theory became even more traction in contrast with the contentious but more frequently discussed ancient astronaut theory. According to this theory, the T's sail. The princess might have been a part of and someone on an interplanetary journey who. This planet was struck by a crash during a catastrophe whose cause is yet unknown. In this perspective, a sarcophagus was a type of. In the cryogenic chamber, time was almost frozen to maintain life forever. Yet, if that were the case, there would still be a doubt. Unanswered, why hasn't she woken up? Nowadays close to the original Cole's location. A plain granite memorial stone that I own has been silently constructed and inscribed on it. The words in 1969 at this site are displayed. A young lady was found to be lying inside a marble coffin that was dated to many 100 million years ago. If the tale today caused you to stop, even for a moment, pause to consider the mysteries that don't lie beyond human comprehension. Don't be afraid to express your opinions in the remarks below and whether you want to continue following us. In this voyage through the past historical details and undiscovered tales, make sure to turn on alerts and subscribe. See you in the upcoming video.